Greetings. Welcome to the DragonCon Urban Fantasy Track discussion of Arcane Season 2. We're very happy to have everyone here with us. We appreciate you tuning in, whether it's now while we're doing this or later on. And I just want to welcome everyone and to also say that tonight, rather than having me ask a bunch of questions, it's going to be my worthy second on the track, Kevin Batchelder, who is going to be the moderator. So I am passing over all those duties to him. So Kevin, here you go.
All right. Thank you very much, Carol. Yeah, we're going to have some fun talking Arcane with a focus on season 2, but actually anything from the 2 seasons of the show is fair game. So there's your warning. If you stumbled in here and haven't seen the show, do know that we may totally spoil anything and everything from the series, but we will have some fun talking about it. And if you are watching live, by all means on YouTube, throw some comments in the chat and we'll be glad to keep an eye on it and maybe answer some questions you might have. We want to make this as interactive as possible. So by all means, do that. But before we get into questions and discussions, let's take a couple of moments and let our panelists introduce themselves. Carol, you did a little bit of it, but why don't you start it off here?
All right. I'm Carol Malcolm. I am the director of the Urban Fantasy Track, and we are doing what I think might be panel 92, virtual panel 92 on the YouTube channel. So, hey, if you're watching this or if you're here, thank you.
All right. Thank you. Finley?
Hi. My name is... 1 second.
All
right. Okay, well, we'll wait for him to come back. Yep. We roll with it. How about you, Jesse?
Hi, my name is Jessie Ann York. I am a horror writer who usually speaks on the horror track, but I'm thrilled to be here. When I'm not publishing short stories and working on my novels with my literary agent, I am obviously cosplaying. You can see my gauntlets in the background. And so I'm on this channel just because I'm a huge Arcane fan. I absolutely love cosplaying Vi, and I'm really happy to be here, and I hope you have me back. So,
of course.
Yes. Fantastic. You did a great job on our Arcane panel that we did at Con this year.
It was so much fun. I was so excited when I heard from Carol. We were talking about season 2. So thank you.
Yeah, we recorded the audio from that panel, folks, and I released it on my podcast and put a photo of Jesse's cosplay as well there. So feel free to reach out if you'd like to find that one. All right. How about you, Marks?
Hey, I'm Marks Pyle. I'm a podcaster, filmmaker, author, podcast host, the podcast genre attainment, where we interview different writers and creators and stuff. And I write urban fantasy and different types of books, and founded Cabot Crossing Publishing. We publish different anthologies where we mishmash genres. And but of all the genres, my favorite genre is urban fantasy, and Arcane's kind of urban fantasy-ish. I don't know what genre it really is, actually. but I love being on Urban Fantasy channel of DragonCon. I've been on a lot of them. I was telling them I watch a lot of TV.
Well, we're always glad to have you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes. All right. Finley, would you like to introduce yourself?
Hi, my name is Finley. I'm a high school student. I really enjoyed the entirety of the Arcane show, so my grandma invited me to be on the panel, so I'm glad to be here. Thank you.
Awesome. Well, it's going to be great. We got a lot of different voices and folks involved, and we're going to have some fun. The goal will be, for those of you watching, to have a panel discussion around an hour. Trust me, I have enough questions to last for 3, but we're not going to go there, at least not today. So maybe we'll save some for the panels at Con, shall we say. So yeah, I've definitely gone down the Arcane rabbit hole. I think at last count, I was a little over 200 videos I've watched on YouTube with analysis or reactions and so forth. I just can't get enough. So I will try to restrain myself. But what I want to do is kick it off. One of the things I had a challenge with when it comes to sharing the show and trying to get other folks to watch it sometimes is just to be able to describe it. As folks will often say, you try to do like an elevator pitch. Can you share something in just a sentence or two of what it is? And I saw a great interview with the showrunners, and they described the show as grimsicle, meaning a combination of grim and whimsical. So I'm curious, do you folks agree? Or if I asked you, how would you describe the show in a sentence or two? And why don't we start off with Carol?
Well, that's actually kind of interesting that they use that term, because when I first started watching, which I had said to you guys before we started the panel, that I started at Christmas watching season 1, and Finley had asked me, well, how did you like it? And I said, or how do you like it? And I said, I'm enjoying it, but it's pretty, it can be pretty rough. And he said, yeah, season 1 was pretty grim. So that's perfect that they actually, that they described it that way. And I think one of the things that impressed me the most about it is that I don't watch a lot of animated things. And so for me, just because it's not something that's typically on my radar, I guess. But I was really impressed with how they do that. And I think that what I would say about the show is that it's kind of a blend of maybe different genres. I mean, you've got the airship, so you're throwing in some steampunk, which is your SF, and and you've got all these, you've got supernatural elements, but that I guess rather than grimsicle, I would say that it's how would I put this? Kind of super stuffed with genre elements, and yet it never sacrifices any of the emotional content or the psychological stuff. And that, I know that's more than a sentence or two, but those are the things that kind of stand out to me about it, if somebody were to ask, which I guess you just did.
Excellent. Finley, what about you?
Well, actually, right before I got on this panel, I was talking with my neighbor about just like getting on. He was asking about the show. I was kind of explaining it as just an animated show. I know it's based off the League of Legends game. There's like not as much lore, I don't think, in the game itself, but how it's kind of an expansion of the lore, the limited lore of that game, and how it's definitely very grim, as Carol said. There are some pretty wholesome moments in the show, especially the second season, but I think the Grimsicle is a very, very good representation of the show. So yeah.
Excellent. Thank you. Jesse, what about you?
Yeah, the way I usually pitch it to my friends is I just say, if you're a fan of art and animation in general, you have to see it. If you are someone who is an artist, if you're someone in the animation industry, the second season is the most expensive animated season of a television show ever. And it really, really shows in the art, in the backdrops, in the directions. One of my favorite things about the second season is they do a lot of passage of time through almost like music videos. The music is made specifically for the animation and the scenes. And so that's how I usually pitch to people, is if you're just a fan of art in general, you have to see the stunning color work and the outlines and the backdrops that team is doing. The other term that I haven't heard yet, I think these are all great. One more I would throw in is found family and family drama. I think that is the core of the show, and it would not work without those dynamics. If you look at every single character, they are never in a vacuum. Mel has a wild relationship with her mother. Jace is coming back from his family who made the hammers. He's trying to prove himself to them. Of course, Vi and Caitlin. Vi's Kieran legacy, and then you have Vi dealing with her little sister. But yeah, the found family, not just the direct family ties, but then how the families come together, specifically in the second season. There's some really cool dynamics that happen with characters that we wouldn't expect after the fallout of season 1. But it's really cute to see who ends up in these unlikely groups together. So
Yeah, very true. So much to talk about. All right. All right, Marks, how about you?
All right, let me see. I tried to jam everything in. Arcane is a grim punk fantasy animated action series jam-packed with alliances, betrayals, and drama with themes related to family, economic imbalance, and the lines between science and magic tested and pushed too far. I don't know, did I touch on this?
Wow.
Yeah. Okay.
And awesome, and as Jesse said, awesome art.
Yeah. That was good, Mark. Very good.
Yeah. Wow. I am impressed.
Uh,
How long did it take you to come up with that one?
While all you talked. Luckily, I was last.
Oh, perfect. Yeah. No, all of those elements from all of you. That's one of the things I love about this show is you can't easily pigeonhole it. There is so much there, and you can watch it for so many different reasons that it makes every rewatch fresh as to how you might look at it. Now, one of the things we definitely saw in season 2, if we focus on that for a minute, is just some amazing emotional roller coaster rides. Highs, lows, more highs, more lows, just in terms of what happened with characters and story play out. For this season and season 2, did you have a favorite scene, moment, item, story, passage, whatever it might be, that just really resonated the most with you for season 2?
are we allowed to talk about spoilers?
Yes, anything is
yeah,
fair
yeah,
game.
anything's game, yeah.
Anything is yep, fair game. And this time, let's start with Finley.
I think one of my favorite scenes was when Jinx found the little girl. I forget her name, but
Isha.
yes, that was a very emotional-ish scene. It was kind of cool to see her like evolve to like grow and look a little bit more like Jinx as scenes go on, and it was really cool to see that. So
Yeah, the found family.
yeah.
Very true. Very true.
And yeah, I agree. For her to have to act kind of in that role was very meaningful to see, that she had to kind of be the responsible one.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. And a great thing, take my moderator's privilege here to go down a rabbit hole for a second. The thing that is awesome in Arcane is often the intentionality, if that's a word, of what they choose to do, because a lot of the introduction of Isha, from physically how she comes in to the scene, is very similar to how we saw things with Powder, and they do a great job with parallels.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Quick sidebar, we have a new panelist joining us. Kelly, maybe you could introduce yourself for all of our viewers.
Sure. I'm Kelly Harkins. I'm the director of the American Science Fiction Fantasy Media Track at DragonCon. I'm a little out of it right now. I have not slept in like 36 hours. So just have patience with me.
Well, that's dedication for you to be here in that
That's
situation.
right. We appreciate it. Mm-hmm.
Very much so. All right, going around the virtual table. Jesse, I think you're next.
Oh my gosh. Victor and Jace, their full circle moment at the end. That was by far my favorite part. Victor was my favorite character in the first season. And I was really scared he was going to get left behind in the second season. I'm not a League of Legends player, so I didn't know that he was a huge character in the game. The way they presented him in the first season, he just kind of seemed low key. I had no idea what he was going to turn into. And so when the second season starts and I saw the scale of it, I was like, man, I hope they don't leave behind my favorite Hex Tech researcher. And he ended up being one of the biggest parts of the second season. But Victor and Jace's relationship at the end and the embrace at the end, that was my absolute favorite part. Also, just all the art with Victor's design and how we see it change and the organic look to it and the way the hex core starts moving across his skin. Like visually, it's very beautiful too. And so that scene where they put their hands together at the end and it's exploding around them, it just felt like out of all the characters, I just thought it was like a perfect full circle for them. I was really satisfied with that ending, visually and the way it was written.
Yep,
like it was
very true. Marcus, how about you?
There's so many good parts in the show. I'm going to say like the whole episode of whatever that's focused on Echo mostly. Because he's a character that didn't really get a lot of attention. It was kind of like, I feel like Echo was built up, or not really built, but he was really cool introduction season 1, and I felt like he just got forgotten a little bit. So that episode was really cool. And then like the scene where he's dancing with Jinx or Powder in the alternate world, I thought was really artistic and really interesting, and really did a good job like more solidifying at least his feelings towards her, which I think they kind of teased to at different points. So I did like that. And that's the same thing that's the same episode Jace, right? Because I really love the scene where Jace is in this post-apocalyptic setting. It's like very it reminds me of like Annihilation, the movie Annihilation.
And stuff. It does look like Annihilation.
Yeah, it's got a little Annihilation. Then like whenever before that, as you were talking about with the art, that reminds me a little bit of the plane of order or whatever I'm trying to say from D&D and stuff. Some of those really cool artistic angles. But anyway, those are some of the coolest moments that stood out when you first asked that. But really, every episode has so many amazing scenes and moments.
Yeah, it's kind of a bit of an unfair question. That's why I had to be sure to ask it.
You should go, you're wrong, not that scene.
Interesting little bit of info I came across too is that talk about that dance scene. Echo Z Drive lets him go back 4 seconds. Mm-hmm. That dance scene was shot at 4 frames per second.
Yes, it's so cool.
Yeah, so many cool tidbits.
I love those little touches they put in.
Yeah, they put so much in there. Kelly, I don't know if you heard the question, but I was asking folks what in season 2 might have been their, with so much emotional stuff, what might have been their favorite moment or scene or just something that just truly resonated with you.
Oh boy. Well, I don't know what half of everybody said. So, but even then, a lot of the ones that I heard mentioned, I really did appreciate. I have to admit, I've always got a soft spot for the alternate roads, and so the Echo and Powder in that world, the way their lives could have been if it had been a little different, and if the world had been a little more fair. So, and I thought that was one of those moments that I really wished I could have seen more of that, but that's part of the point is that you don't. you have to play with the cards you're dealt, and that's kind of that realization that they have to make that choice. But so yeah, that definitely was one that really sung to me, and seeing Powder's reaction to Vi's death and the little memorial and scene there, of course, and Echo doesn't quite understand it until she kind of lashes out about that, and kind of seeing that reverse in her that, of course, Vi in the real world goes through with her. So I think that was, again, you mentioned about parallels, Kevin. That's definitely one of those that I saw in that sequence. So.
Yep. Excellent choice. Carol, what about you?
Well, I will say that, there were many moments that I thought, first off, the fact that you could get those kinds of reactions while watching animated figures, I thought was pretty great. For them, that takes writing skill, but also animation skill for people to be able to identify that way. If you are like me, not a gamer, so you're not used to looking, watching stories of people in those kinds of forms, I guess you could say. But I think the finale with that intro song where we're seeing Powder getting ready and you're hearing all these things. And talk about foreshadowing when she's talking about what if death is just like going to sleep, you're talking about leaving all these things behind. And then I think it's kind of when you get to the end, near the end, where she does when she hits the stone or knocks loose the stone in Vi's gauntlet that's holding her when the Vanderbeest is trying to pull her down, and she knows exactly what's going to happen. But so that she can save her sister, she knocks that out. And then they bring it back to that song again. And I thought, dang, that was, that was really well done. I thought they played that in just a very touching way.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And as Jesse said too, the music was all written specifically for the show.
Yeah.
So they did such a great job, from the montages in season 2 to the music, and in a couple of cases too, I know they had artists submit music, and in at least one, if not 2 cases, they liked like 2 of the submissions so much they actually had them merge it together. So it's technically 2 songs.
Wow.
That are being, it's some amazing stuff. So they really, again, intentionally made sure we got that side of the entertainment as well. It's great stuff.
Do you remember which song they merged together? I'm curious.
Oh, it's they posted on YouTube. I think it's called, what is it? Bridging the Rift, the behind the scenes of the show.
Cool. I want to watch it.
Yeah, it's 4 episodes, about 45 minutes or so each. It's really detailed, and it's in there when they do a section on the music.
That's cool.
That's real. I mean, and when you hear it, you don't think it's 2 songs as it sounds, but when you then see them creating it, it's like, wow, I can't believe they. Yeah,
listening to the soundtrack nonstop. Like, that's all I listen to.
Yeah. Well, now, Finley, do you know, was the Linkin Park song created for the show?
I know it was one of their singles. I don't know if it was specifically for the show. I also know they performed it for like the World Series for the League of Legends game or something. I'm not sure exactly what it was, but I do know that
it
wasn't.
Could have been, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's in their new album and all that, the From Zero album, and but
okay. I figured, well, after Kevin said that, it kind of makes sense, because they would have, the recording of it would have happened before, and of course the production of the show would have taken a long time. But that the music aspect I thought was fascinating, and how a lot of it seemed to go along with the title of the episode, which they had some great titles in the second season. Well, I mean, the whole both seasons, I thought they did a nice job of naming the episodes, but I noticed that there was a big correlation between the music and the titles of the episodes in this second season.
Mm-hmm. Well, and that actually leads into my next question, Carol. Great setup. Thank you. Is that, again, two season show. For some of our panelists, I know you watched them when they came out, so that would have been 3 years apart. For others, like Carol, it was a steady stream of going from season 1 to 2. But I'm curious, thoughts on the differences between the seasons in terms of liked it, didn't like it, tone is different, pace, so forth. Kind of, what would your thoughts, kind of be on those? And Jesse, why don't you kick us off this time?
I do think there's a distinct difference, and it makes sense. The first season is very much more focused on writing and slower pacing, and I can see why they did that, because they wanted to make a really strong intro so they could get the second season. I don't think they had gotten the green lit for that yet, so there was a lot more emphasis on the characters. We do get a time skip, but it's one time skip compared to the second season, where we get, I believe, 3 or 4 different time skips.
Yeah.
So the second season, to me, the pacing is significantly faster, because we're jumping around a lot more in time. And the animation is really focused on that passage of time. I think some of the best parts of the show are how they show things, like years will be passing in the show, but they're showing it through music, which is just wild to me. When they show Silco's death and the aftermath, and like the overlords coming together to reclaim his spot, that's a lot of time passing, but we see it within like a 5-minute song, and it's done really well. Same with Caitlin and Vi going back down to the underground, releasing the gas. That also is like, I think like at least around close to a year, and that's all done through one song. We lose a little bit of the writing, I think, just a little bit, just with that pacing, or maybe a lot in some places. But I think the animation makes up for it, and I can understand why they wanted to show the things they did. But I do think the first season has a stronger emphasis on writing. The second season has an even bigger emphasis on the animation. So,
Excellent. Marks.
Yeah, I think that's a good way to put it. I did find that the pacing was almost too fast sometimes in season 2 for me. I kind of missed it. I was kind of like, can you just slow down a little bit and let's enjoy this moment a little bit? But they did a great job. I do love how they did it like a music video in a way with the transitions, and it was very creative with the artwork and such. But they really needed like at least 10 episodes or something like that. They jam-packed a lot in season 2.
I would have been fine with like 5 more episodes.
Yeah, me too. So I think that's the biggest difference is the pace was a lot faster. There were, they introduced plot elements with like some of the side characters like Echo and Mel that I think really need a little more time. But they still stayed very strong with, the relationship with Jinx and Vi, explored that pretty well. And it's amazing fight scenes and such. The animation definitely kicked up a notch, in season 2. But it was still very strong and good. I hope with this, because I think they're supposed to do spinoffs, I hope they do a nicer blend of the two and maybe get allowed to have more episodes so they can really breathe and play around with the characters more.
All right. Kelly, what about you?
I say we're talking Netflix here, so
Yeah.
Usually Netflix, I'm like, gosh, why'd you drag it out for 10 episodes or something?
I agree on a lot of the levels. It's definitely kind of a micro story in the first season, and we get a lot of macro story in the second. I think they were trying to do so much. I almost wish they had. I guess you would have hard to minimize some of those storylines, at least now that it's happened. But it felt like we got a lot more esoteric too in the second season, as far as getting into big concepts and things like that. And it felt like we went along those lines to the point where some of them probably didn't get touched on as much as they could have been. So in that sense. The look of the second season is amazing, no question. But I think on its worst day, Arcane is still, one of the best things out there.
Oh, yeah.
It did itself a little disservice, I think, in that sense, in second season. So.
All right. Interesting. Carol.
Yeah, I think there was a distinct difference. And I'm the way you had posed the question about whether you watched it, whether you had to wait 3 years to see the new season, or maybe for someone who didn't watch it when it first came out, but watched it even a year ago and then had to wait for the new one to come out, and as opposed to me. And for those of you who had the bigger break, you probably saw more of a difference, I guess, than I did, because I didn't really think about it until you asked the question. But I do, and I everything that everyone has said up to this point, I can certainly, see that being the case. But I will say that the second season reminded me a lot more of a video game than the previous season did. And I think, to the point that it was focused on the first season was trying to get us to know the characters, set the stage for everything. And in Finley's words, the grim events of season 1 certainly set up things that happened later in season 1, with the death of Vander. And that was sad. But there was just something different about the tone in the first season, I think. And with the second season, it could be, as Marks was saying, everything seemed to move so fast that it was like, whoa, slow down, wait a minute, let's take this in before we move to the next thing. And I'm like, yeah, good thing we have pause buttons, and can just give it a minute and say, okay, what did we just witness? But I think for me that was the big difference. Whether I had to pick which approach did I like better, or did I have a preference? Not really, because I kind of ended up looking at it, since I did watch both seasons since I started on like Christmas Day or something like that. That they were um, close together, that I'm looking at it as one big whole, I suppose, one big whole story. So I didn't really have a preference, but I did see those differences that I just mentioned.
Mm-hmm. Finley, what about you?
Back to the speed and pacing, I definitely agreed that season one was a lot slower and more focused on the writing. And one thing I liked about season two, though, was how the action scenes were kind of like music videos. Like as the music was playing, there were a lot of if there are any animated music videos that any of you have seen, from ones that I've seen, it was very like there's some slow-mo, there's some really fast stuff. There's a lot of pacing to what the music is doing. But in season one, it wasn't as much to a lot of music, it's more just focusing on what's going on in the action instead of like going to some kind of music like in the second season.
Gotcha. Yeah. Yeah. And talking about the pace of that second season, I think it was good, knowing the Netflix model, that they actually at least released them in acts. So you had a week between the 3 episodes. Sets is how they did it. Carol, I'm not sure if you're aware, but yeah, the 3 episodes at a time, a week apart. But this is definitely a season and a show that I think would have benefited almost from the, shall we say, traditional TV of having a week apart, because there was so much to digest that, and the Netflix model and folks not wanting to get spoilers. I know a lot of people just rush through them so they wouldn't get spoiled. And that's not the way to appreciate certainly a show like this or a season like number 2, but interesting approach. Next up, what I'd like to ask you folks, Jesse touched on a little. I'm not sure if we've heard it yet from any of you, but I'd love to hear, over the course of the 2 seasons, your favorite character from the show. And Marks, let's start with you this time.
Favorite character? Oh, man. I feel like everybody's going to say it, but Jinx.
Definitely not for me. No. Okay.
Okay. I like characters that are like good and bad sometimes, like Spike and other characters from other media. So I thought and Harley Quinn, like she's got a little bit of touches of all those. Yeah, I liked that character's journey quite a bit, and we get to see her from as a kid all the way to an adult, and kind of finding and also it got to touch on mental health issues too, and I thought it did a good job handling that. Great job with the art showing what's going on in her mind, and when some of the struggles she's having, and giving us just kind of a I don't know, a believable kind of character who then kind of went to then turned into a hero. So, and who knows what, and that dynamic between her and Vi, I thought is really core to the show, right? So, yeah, I think Jinx. Plus, she's got cool art, cool gadgets, cool showmanship. She's a cool character, and she cut all that hair off at the end, man.
Yeah.
All right, Kelly, what about you?
That's a good question. So I don't want to go the easy route either. So I'm probably going to pick one that's a little odd in that, but mostly because the character arc is Caitlin. I really liked her character arc throughout the whole thing, even to the point where she's getting played and she kind of knows she is, but when you have your mentor essentially saying, no, this is the way you do it, and that pull different ways. So I loved seeing that journey that she kind of went through, and how she comes out on the other side. She's like, no, this is where I need to be, Vi's my choice, and following that. I really loved seeing that journey from, the straight lace cop that she starts the whole show as to where she ends up as. So
very good. No, excellent choice. That's the great greatness of this show. There are lots to pick from. Carol, how about you?
Well, Kelly just took mine, but that's okay. And Caitlin was pretty much, she was pretty much my favorite in season 1. But then but my ideas about most of them started to change by the time we got to season 2. And I think that was done on purpose. I mean, I think that they were kind of, they were kind of set up that way. And when my vehement reaction to Mark's mentioning Jenks was that I liked what they did with her in the second season more than what was going on in the first. In the first,
she only murdered a little bit. That's all.
Yeah, that's a little bit. And I told Kevin, I was like, yeah, well, you might be surprised about my thoughts on Powder. I'll just have to tell you later. But because I did not find her the least bit sympathetic in season 1. Sorry, folks, but I did not. And I mean, not as she became Jinx, but then we get to see, as that moved on. But Caitlin, I agree. I liked, the way that her character developed, and over both seasons, except for that brief time where she was, as Vi pointed out, acting like Jinx, for a brief time where all she could see was, revenge, and, vengeance was what she was after. But after she kind of realized that was not going to help anything, she, was able to focus on what was important. And I think she ended up doing a pretty good job of managing her personal life and her, her professional life, of melding the two together, because she was very conflicted about that for a while. So I would have to say she probably stayed my favorite.
All right. Finley.
For me, it was Jenks. I really liked the character development from just this sweet little girl growing up with Vi and Vander, and then making the mistake at the warehouse or wherever, and then growing up, realizing, and then like having all these problems, growing out her hair, all of that stuff, and then just like kind of the stuff going on with Silco as well that developed her character. And then Silco's death, and then that going on in the second season where she kind of addresses her mental health a little bit, but still keeps her character through until the end. I thought that was a really good character development.
Yeah, she came to, and I have a question about that, which I want to get people's opinions on. So hopefully I'm not taking away the thing, but this is significantly about that, because Marks, you mentioned the mental health aspect of her, and Finley, you just did as well. And there was one of the season 2 episodes where she's talking to little Misha, right? That was her name.
Isha, yep.
Yeah, and she said, since you've been here, it's like I have glasses on, but I'm not sure which is the reality. Is it the clear or the blurry? And that made me think about when you guys mentioned the mental health issues, is that, she did have that problem with hearing those. We would see her in her moments of schizophrenia, where she was hearing all these, these different voices. And what I'm wondering is, do you guys think that was, what she was referring to when she was talking to Misha, that those things started becoming cleared up for her when she had Misha in her life to take care of? Did anybody else get that?
I don't know if I would compare it to schizophrenia. Coming from someone, I worked at a psychiatric hospital.
Oh, okay.
And have a psych degree, so I get really excited about this topic because I love talking about mental health.
Right.
With schizophrenia, you need some pretty hard drugs to fix that. Taking care of someone won't necessarily get rid of hallucinations. What I would compare it to, though, is depression. There are a lot of people who, when they start to feel better and come out of depression, they actually almost start to miss being depressed sometimes. Like, they talk about how their perspective changes and they almost want to go back to the way it was before. And so that's kind of what that reminds me of, is her questioning if this is right or wrong, or missing that feeling and then falling back into it pretty quickly. That's pretty common with depression. And I think the song choice that they picked, where it's talking about giving up and just wanting to sleep, I think that was tied very directly to depression. So I could see it for that mental illness.
Yeah, and I could see, not that they necessarily knew exactly what mental health issue they were doing in the show, but maybe PTSD from the whole trauma of what happened, and that was tied into it with what the guilt and everything of the death she killed. And so sorry she killed them that she imagines they're still alive and everything.
Yeah.
I think
dismiss, Silco's gaslighting either. So
he was manipulating her, and yeah.
Is a good comparison.
And I think Isha definitely helped anchor her, because part of the thing is that Vi could anchor her, but she got jealous about Caitlin, and then it became a twisted their relationship. And so Isha was just very innocent, remind her of her as a child and as like this little sister and stuff. And I think it really helped anchor her a lot to be able to think more clearly and start to kind of redeem. Now she'll slip back if she ever, because I still think she's alive, of course. But so they could always have her slip back a little bit and stuff. But what I appreciate about it is because of the artwork, in the sound effects, it really gives you the impression of the pressure she feels, and she's torn and confused and stuff. I think it does a really good job of doing that. And then I think it just makes her like she's this crazy, wild, like Joker, Harley Quinn character, but I feel like she feels more real than Harley Quinn or Joker ever have, because of that view that we get of her. So that's what I was very impressed by.
Yeah, for those who are interested too, there are several excellent YouTube videos from therapists and folks who work in mental health looking at the show and what's there. Again, more layers to be able to peel back. So I'd encourage folks might enjoy checking out some of those.
So that's everybody's assignment before.
Jesse, I think we know your answer, but favorite character?
Yeah, I'll try not to talk about him forever. But I really do love Victor. I love seeing him come from that background of not being trusted at first because of where he's from, and then working hard to be a researcher and becoming respected. I love the dynamic between him and Jace. In the first season, I absolutely hated Jace just because he was distracted by Mel. And I was like, no, you're supposed to be with Victor. I hated Jace in the first season. And then in the second season, when he realizes how important Victor is to him and starts pursuing him and trying to get him back in his life, I was like, yes, like you do love Victor, like go back to him. There's a lot of debate. The writers have come out and said that they are not in a queer relationship. I know the voice actors though are like, but we think they are. So there's debate among the writers and the cast. But whether they're queer or not, I think there is something, they do love each other on a very, very deep level. And that, I think that was my favorite thing to see at the end, was that love. And once again, that idea of found family, but those two having that relationship where they work together so hard to make this dream a reality. And it kind of went backwards, right, and started hurting people, and them coming together to fix it. But yeah, I loved the triangle of Mel, Jace, and Victor, and I'm really glad that he went back to his partner. Like, that's his partner. I love that dynamic so much.
Very true. And
yeah,
that doesn't...
nobody chose Jace, and I got to give a shout out to Jace, who was kind of a jerk sometimes. But
yeah,
I got to work one time with Kevin Alejandro when he was at Con, and as part of the Lucifer cast, and he's such a nice man, so that every time Jace would say anything, I'd be like, "Oh, hey, Kevin," and and it's like, "No, you can't be mean." Okay.
Excellent point. Excellent point. Now that question and your answers now leads into my next one, and we touched a little bit on it early on. I'd be very curious to hear folks share what was their favorite character pairing, whether romantic or otherwise. There are so many times in this show where one character either figuratively or literally saves someone else's life or does something there. So there's some amazing dynamics. I'd be curious your favorites there. Kelly, can you go first?
Sure. Okay, I'm gonna start with another odd one. Mel and her mom.
Yes.
I just seeing again that progression, because I'm all about that. That journey. First, oh yeah, my daughter, and just going back about her brother and the sacrifices and just all that journey between them, and so much water under the bridge, so to speak. That was one of my favorites, just seeing that whole thing, even when it comes to the fight at the end. It was just like, wow, just seeing that. And you can even see a little pride in her mom at what her daughter's doing, even though it's against her, so I that was probably one of my favorites, just seeing that whole journey, between them. I love that part.
Yep. Yeah, great choice. Carol?
Well, that's a tough one because there were so many that, were good, I guess examples of what you would expect an actual relationship to look like. And I guess mine would probably have to be Caitlin and Vi, just because I thought that they made it pretty clear from the beginning, that what the two, I mean, they, first they're kind of adversarial, but not really. And then it kind of developed, and to me, it felt like a real relationship, if that, not a stylized one, even though we're talking about animated characters, which again, I bring up that I have less experience with that than probably some of you do. And, for me, it just, other than that brief time when, as I said previously, Caitlin was being kind of a jerk for an episode or two in season 2. Now, granted, her mom did just get blown up, but I thought that the depiction of that relationship was really well done. I did really appreciate that. Although I do agree, Jesse, that the Jason Victor's relationship or bond, regardless of how people want to interpret it, I thought even if you take out any kind of romantic inclinations, which honestly I didn't pick up on, but I didn't get that from it. I always assumed it was.
Oh, I could do a full breakdown, but I won't derail the panel.
But and true, but I was anyway. I thought that relationship, they were professional partners, they were good friends, they were like brothers. I mean, I think Jace even explained when he was talking to somebody, I think it was in a conversation with Mel, he said he's like my brother. So, and then aside from the obvious one, well, I'm going on too many. We'll go on to the next person.
You're learning what it's like to be a panelist when you have 5 answers and can only give one.
I know.
Finley, what about you?
I think for me it was Isha and Jinx. Just Jinx finding Isha and them kind of like bonding. Isha wanting to be like Jinx, dyeing her hair blue, doing all the same things, doing fights with Jinx, and just like how they bonded really well. And then that kind of helped Jinx into the end of the second season. I think that was a really good pairing.
Yep. All right, Jesse, you going to surprise us?
I am. I'm actually going to talk about Savika and Jinx. I'm really glad that Kelly said Mbessa and Mel, because that was my second pick, because somebody needed to talk about Mbessa because she's a great character. Oh my goodness. But Savika is another really, really great character. And one of my favorite parts of the second season, and this is where I'm sad that the pacing didn't slow down, because I could have seen a whole season of just Savika, Jinx, and Isha as a little found family coming together.
Yeah.
That scene where the overlords are trying to get Savika to turn Jinx over, and Savika doesn't, and then she goes back to Silco's office and Jinx is there, and I love that relationship between these two women where they're talking about this man being gone, and realizing that they have their own power. Like, it wasn't just him. Like, they have this conversation where they're saying, yeah, we kind of did everything for him. Like, we were the ones helping him this whole time. And then they come together and realize that they can make his dream a reality without him. Like, their strength comes from them. And he just happened to be what brought them together. And then, of course, like, Jinx giving Savika the new glove, and that fight scene is just absolutely amazing. But I could have had a whole season of Savika, Jinx, and Isha. I think that was a really cool, unique family, and I just love seeing those two women. They could have played it off as enemies. They could have hated each other and killed each other after that situation. But them coming together was just so beautiful. And I thought it was representative of real feminine relationships, where we're stronger when we come together. So I love seeing that in the show.
I also loved the beauty of how the choice to have them sitting back to back as they're having that conversation.
Yeah.
They don't want to look at each other, but then they realize they have, like you said, so much in common. Excellent. All right, Marks.
I agree with all of them so far. I also think that Mel's mom was pretty awesome as a villain, or just a character. She's a really interesting character I've never seen before, and really stood out as really awesome bad guy or bad woman, villain, whatever, bad mom.
Yes, it was not going to win any contest for Mom of the Year. Yeah.
No, not going to. I guess. So I'm sure Kevin's going to talk about Jinx and Vi. So I'll twist it and not say that. I will say those two and their relationship with Vander, especially
Vander,
whenever he was Vander Beast, as Carol said. I don't know if that's canon or not, but it should be. I thought that was really touching. Their whole that fatherly relationship with them, and how touching it was whenever he was the Beast and they were trying to help him. And you're like, oh my gosh, will they get their family together? Will they be able to bring him back? And all that stuff. And of course, no, it went grim, but which made it all, more sad in a way, and heroic for sacrifice with Jinx. And, I thought it was a really cool storyline that I didn't see coming. I did not expect Vander to suddenly pop back up into the story. And it was a great way to tie in whatever his name, the professor dude, the alchemist guy, and his backstory of his daughter. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
And tying that together was really, really interesting, and the design of Vanderbeest was wild. That connection and relationship was really interesting, and So, Kevin, what do you think about Jinx and Vi?
Anyone who's listened to any of my podcasts or Dragon Con panels knows how much sister relations mean to me. So that is definitely something that really impacted me. Was the Vi and Powder, and eventually Jinx. That's me. So, but it's not all about me. So on that note, the next question I want to ask, and I am very fascinated to hear answers on this one, because it's one of the ones I'll ask when I'm talking to someone who has seen the show or a fan of it, that I'd like to hear your answers to is, who do you see as the hero of the story? Carol, it's your turn to go first.
Of course, it's my turn to go first. As you mentioned, now I get the fit. Now I have to have the shoe on the other foot. But that's interesting that you asked that, because I was thinking about that today. before we were going to be talking about this tonight, and who, and I think a lot of it has to do with what do you consider a true hero to be, and is it the person who sacrifices it the most? Is it the person who, is willing to do, just about anything to protect those around them? I think it kind of depends on how individuals perceive what a hero means. But I think if you look at from the perspective of the show, what do I think perhaps they were trying to say, or who they were trying to say was the hero? I would guess maybe it was Jace, when it comes down to, being able to convince Victor to back down on all the stuff that he was doing. I'm just throwing that out there. I'm not saying that he was necessarily the hero in my mind, but if you look at it from who kind of saved stuff, at least temporarily, or for now, because as Caitlin says in the voiceover in the last episode, it's not, there's more to tell. Anyway, so I'll just throw that out there and say Jace, because he kind of saved they didn't all get blown up at the end.
All right. Finley.
For me, it's kind of hard. I think Jace is definitely a good choice, but I don't know if there's one specific. I don't know if there's one specific person that I would consider a hero. I know there are definitely a lot of villains throughout the show, but yeah, I don't know if there's a specific hero throughout the entirety of even just a single season. But definitely Jace is a good option for especially that last episode or two where he's trying to stop Victor from basically blowing everybody up. So
okay.
Or changing things to his to what he wants them to be anyway. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Awesome. Okay. Jesse, what about you?
I agree with Finley. I think for the show's purpose, they don't really pick one person, but I do think if you look at the writing, they do favor one character, and they favor her very greatly. A lot of the opening scenes in the first episode are from her perspective, and then in the last episode, they're from her perspective. But I would actually argue that Jinx is the hero of the story. You wouldn't think that from the way the first season ends, but the way they redeem her in the second season and the sacrifice she makes at the end, and this switch from, like, Silco comes to her and he says, if you really want to end this conflict, you have to step away and leave. And she's the one character who does that. She does step away and leave. And I do think she's alive. I don't know if we want to go down that rabbit hole. But I think the show writers, I think they favor her as the hero of the story and the journey she takes. Her relationship with Vi in the first season falls apart, and we get to see her fall apart because of that. But then in the second season, she comes back and essentially steps into Vi's role and is the bigger sister, taking care of Isha. And sometimes Vi, she's the one who talks sense into Vi. She's like, hey, you're going through a rough patch. Like, get over it. So was I. Like, we need to come together and figure this out. And then she, at the very end, is the big sister making that sacrifice when Vi is kind of on, in the fetal position there at the end. So I would say that the writers position Jinx to be the main character of the show, if I had to pick one.
Okay. Everybody's making a great case. Marks.
So Maddie, she's great. Her manipulations and betrayal really help push the characters in the right direction. Now.
Oh, Maddie. I'm glad she got mentioned.
Yeah, I was going to mention it with the relationships, and then I forgot. I was going to say, like, best relationship and best final breakup ever. No, I'm but no, no. More seriously, it's tough because it's really season 2 is very much an ensemble cast. They all got these really strong story arcs because, like you said, Carol, like Jace kind of did it. But then again, like Echo, if Echo hadn't done what he did, Jace couldn't have talked him into that, right? So they all played parts. But I would lean towards what Jesse said is is Jinx. I feel like Jinx in this season had really had the biggest arc overall, and was like they were going to lose the whole battle until she came in and surprised them with her and the fireflies and such, and changed the whole course of it all. And you could see in that parallel universe how important she could be. So she's a very important person, both as for violence and for science. So
the last shot, just tying into that, the last shot is the airship, right? And we assume she's on the airship, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's what I assume. Yeah. And I read, and I'd forgotten in season 1, she had made a mention about that airship saying, one day I'm going to.
It was her very first line in the show.
Was it really? Oh, that's perfect. They did such a great job with that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it does. So yeah, especially with that in mind, and it's like she really framed the whole show. So
it's the last thing we see. They end on that. So
yeah, and then the end real fast. That's in that kind
Jinx
of font and Jinx style.
Yeah. Along with the pink streak, but we won't go there right now. All right, Kelly, what do you think?
I'm going to take the chicken way out. One of the things I think I loved about Arcane so much was that they did such a good job, like Mark said, about being an ensemble piece, is that you see every single character, literally even the villains in this show, have those heroic moments. And, where because nobody's black and white. And I think that's one of the things that they did so well about this, is that from Silco to Maddie, even, we see, these moments where they do something that just, you go, wow. And then they turn around and do something villainous. So I think in that sense, that was just one of the things that really stood out to me and separated this from so many other shows, because it's very easy to make people one-dimensional. And I really don't think any character in this was one-dimensional, even down to like Maddie and below. I think
even the fish guy, he never really had lines.
Oh my gosh.
I know him.
Beautiful.
Yeah, there was that reminds me that there was there was a video, a YouTube video that Kevin had sent me the link to, that talked about how this was about season 1, like after, I think it was season 1.
Yes, it was
after
episode 7.
Yeah, and then about how much they do on the show without words. And both Finley and somebody else had mentioned music before, that a lot of times there was music playing during those moments, but you did get a lot, which again, me being fascinated by the fact that it could happen with animated characters, the facial expressions, and being able to convey feeling and mood and even thoughts to a certain extent by that. And I just got to, I found out today, because I was looking it up to find out about, was there going to be anything else? And found out it's a French company that does the animation.
Fortiche, yes.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And it was just amazing.
It kind of makes me wonder. I know, although I'm a gamer, I don't play MOBAs, which League of Legends is. And partially because the nature of what it was, where they all are heroes, essentially. Or villains. You can play in the game. So I wonder if that fed into their narrative structure because of that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
that's a good point. That's why it's hard to pinpoint just one person.
Yeah, I don't want to go too far down the rabbit hole, but Mel specifically, they were setting her up. She is one of the few characters who is not in the game. And so when we see her little power up in the second season, she now officially is a playable character in the game. And I think the narrative of the story was in service of that. And that might be why I think it was Carol who said the second season feels more like a video game.
Yeah, exactly.
So they were setting her up for that. She looks beautiful in the game. I don't play the game because I'm also not a fan of that style. But for those who are interested, you can check out and see her Arcane version versus her playable version. And Bessa also got a playable character too, which is interesting.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Love both of them so much.
Yeah. And just for fun, the reason when I asked that question is that my choice, and to me, it's a very clear choice, but again, just my perspective. The hero is Echo.
Oh, yeah.
So.
Yeah.
For me, very much with the being able to go to a parallel universe that is basically utopia for him and choosing to come back and then losing her and what he had. That's
I agree with that.
But as we said, there were so many you could make a great case for them being it, which is what makes for an entertaining show.
Well, and I had the vision when we that portion where he's coming in on the board and he's coming in to try to sever the link and all that, or to cause the whatever, and it was like, okay, I'm hearing and seeing it again, that boy savior episode going when Jinx refers to him as, oh look, it's the boy savior come to take, and I was like, look, there he is, it's the boy savior. Yeah, they did a good job of that, of turning that back, or like kind of bringing things around, I guess you could say.
Absolutely. Well, I hope everyone enjoyed our discussions, just scratching the surface. I mean, I really only focused on characters. We could have gone in so many directions for hours on the show, and we didn't even really talk about Jinx Lives and how there's proof of that, but we won't go there right now. We'll leave everybody wanting more.
Well, maybe we'll have to do a part 2 in another couple months. If anybody's interested in doing that, just let me know. And
I'll see. Absolutely.
Yeah. And we'll see how that goes, but
we might be able to talk about the new show by then, because they've dropped. It's for the game, but I think it's for the next season too. There's a trailer for Noxus, which is really exciting.
Yeah, I didn't watch it, but I saw the news about that. And the cool thing about it is it was just a couple days ago that they dropped this video, right? Yeah. And it was like I was like, wait a minute, games have trailers? As I said, not a gamer out of it. And so I was kind of surprised, but I thought, okay, well, and I was reading some of what it had, what it said about it. So that should be interesting.
All right, Carol, do you want to take us out?
I will take us out. First of all, my thanks to Kevin for taking this on. I knew he was a huge fan. And since the show had, just come out, I forget when it was, but it was fairly recently.
November, season 2.
Okay. And I thought, well, we need to catch people while they're, while they're most excited about it. And so when I said, well, how would you like to do that? And I think it probably took 3 seconds for him to say yes, which is probably about how long it took for him to receive the message and respond. So I do appreciate that you were willing to do it. I want to thank everybody for being here. You've all been great panelists, and I hope you've had fun talking about this show. And I do want to encourage you to check out some of our other programming. Go to our Facebook page for the announcements that you'll see for upcoming other virtual programming that we will have. If you go to Facebook, look up DragonCon Urban Fantasy, we pop right up. And the page is active all the time, so I will make announcements there. And I will tell you that next month I will be doing a panel on that show, also Netflix, Chaos. And then in March, we will be doing Reginald the Vampire, which, lasted a couple seasons. Things that we don't necessarily have the time to do at con, we can do in this format, and it gives people a chance to listen to it. And we do have, we are a hybrid track, and we do have some author interviews coming up as well. So over the next few months. But thank you to everyone for being here, for, whether you're watching us live or whether you're watching us later, we appreciate your support. And again, thanks to this wonderful panel of folks. We appreciate you so much. And good night, everyone.
Take care, all.
Thank you, Kevin and Carol.
Thank you.
Oh, you're welcome. Thank
Very
you,
welcome.
everybody.